do like a little intro, a little bit about yourself, a little bit about the company?
Yes, I'm Ohnogi, co-founder of Thirdverse. I'm also the CBO of the company. So Thirdverse is a VR gaming developer publisher, and then we have two studios, and one is in Japan, in Tokyo, and one in the US. But the US is all remote. We don't have any offices. And we currently have two games live. Then one is a sword fighting game called the Sword of Gargantua. And then one is called Archive Breaker, which we just launched on the PlayStation VR2 platform. And then now our US studio is making the hero-based shooter called X8. That's what we are expecting launch soon. And then we actually planning the closed beta 2 next week from the March 27th.
Couple of words about yourself. What do you do? What's your name?
Sure. Yeah, my name is Dax Berg. I am the VP of US Studios for Thirdverse. We have two studios, one in Tokyo, which is an in-house studio, and then the US Studios is really kind of a global studio. We're all remote. On our team, we have up to 13 different countries actually that we're working with. So we're very remote, but we're working, our main title right now is a game called X8.
Tell us a little bit more about it. X8, what is it? What kind of game is it?
Sure. X8 is a VR heroic shooter, 5 versus 5 multiplayer. So the idea for those not familiar with heroic shooters would be kind of like take the hero styles of a fighting game, but put those in those heroic styles, put those into a shooter, a first-person shooter.
Overwatch is a good analogy.
Overwatch is a good analogy. The Valorant is a good analogy. Those style of games. So X8, kind of the quick narrative behind X8 is it's an old game engine that has a lot of first-person shooter hits. And as time goes on, no one is making games out of this game engine anymore. It becomes kind of self-aware, and it kind of eats a part of itself and then pulls all of these heroes from all these games back into its engine. And they have to fight amongst each other to get their games booted back online.
So tell us a little bit about what's going on in the VR market currently. Because even last year when I was here at GDC, a lot of people were saying that VR is kind of sort of like a new mobile, meaning that there is not really that many games, but there is already sort of some kind of demand. And a lot of people are kind of moving into this space and they feel like it's an interesting opportunity.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit more.
Sure. So when we first launched the Sword of Gargantua, that's back in 2019, and that was actually the Quest 1 launch date. And we also saw when Quest 2 launch, then we saw how hype the software sales. So launching devices always expand the market. So I think this year is another big year for the VR because two big devices coming up. One is a PlayStation VR2, which is just launched, and then Quest 3 definitely they're coming this coming Q4. That's why we're expecting another hype of the market growth. Yeah, that's why we're focusing on product launch this year. And you may know Quest 2 is already sold 20 million units. That is actually 20% of the big console gaming like Nintendo Switch something. And it's already caught up with Xbox devices. And that is actually, the VR has a decent market already. So it's actually worth to do the business. That's why I think people are starting jumping the market again.
So you work as a publisher, and probably a question that a lot of publishers get is, what do consumers want? What do they like? What do they want in terms of VR experiences? What are the tastes like? Because I feel like there's a lot of developers who don't really know. They don't really know the answer to this question.
Yeah. So our team member has kind of a variety of experience from the non-VR device. For example, I'm from more like a PC, mobile gaming developer publisher, and then our studio head Dax is more like console gaming experience. But our VR actually quite unique, which non-VR player cannot have. Then one is, yes, of course, you are in the game, because I always say the non-VR game experiences you only can have through the 2D monitor, but in the VR you're in the game actually. That's a big difference first. And then another big thing is we always say that it's interaction. Because the non-VR gaming, you just use controller, mouse and keyboard on top of it, and then you just the control game character through the monitor. It's more like a third-person view. But in the VR experiences, you are going to be the game character itself. Then you touch object, then you kill enemies, mini stuff. That's totally different experience. And we know there are already many VR gamers in the market. And then what they most expect is more like a new experience, flying, climbing, but it already exists. But they are still looking for another new experiences. That's what we are trying to generate.
So kind of like, I guess, a noob question. I'm one of those people who gets destroyed in any competitive online shooter.
Right.
And then I think about trying to do this in VR, and I feel like my chances are even smaller. So how do you make this work in VR that it's not disorienting, and then you understand where you're going? Because
Options.
like we mentioned, there's like 360 degree and you can be attacked from all over.
Yeah, lots and lots of options. I had a big meeting several years ago with Jason Rubin from Meta, and he said to me, the more options you can give a player, the better they'll be comfortable with. So for example, movement styles. Smooth turn is one way. Some people have to play with smooth turn. As you move and look, you kind of turn the way you want to go. I can't play that way at all. I need snap turn. Snap turning with the flick, you can decide how many degrees of rotation you want to have. And you can set that anywhere from 15 to 90 degrees on snap. So that's just one style of movement. The style of locomotion comfort settings, we have a massive amount of options in our game to custom fit the player so that they feel the most comfortable in the game. As far as the game itself, it is a competitive game, so there is a learning curve, but we do have a very extensive tutorial and a practice mode to allow people to feel very comfortable learning all of the abilities and the things that you do within the game before you jump in.
Do you guys feel comfortable launching a multiplayer title? Do you feel like there's enough players on the market right now that are craving multiplayer experiences, and you're not going to end up with like a lobby that's half empty?
We do. With, like I said, over 20 million devices for Quest, plus we're cross-platform. So the idea of PSVR 2, Quest, as well as PCVR on Steam, all of those players will be able to enter the same lobby and play together.
Do you use any particular, is there any particular technological aspect to like the networking and making sure that it all connects, or do you use some?
Yeah, I mean, we use a system called PlayFab for our networking, but there's a lot of technical things to be able to hook that up and make it run smoothly.
So let's talk a little bit about from the developer standpoint. When I think about video games done for VR, I think that they are shorter in terms of session. Mm-hmm. They also have a little bit of a different visual style. And how do these particular elements influence the cost of production and the time of production? Is it as expensive to build a VR title as you're building like a game for computers? Or is it cheaper, or maybe it's faster? Like, what are the advantages if you're want to try to do a VR thing?
That's good to ask to Dax more. But of course, if it's
maybe there are no advantages. That's also an answer.
But if you try to make a high definition content, of course, the cost is gonna be really higher. Because everything in the VR is a 3D, and a 360 environment. So you have to, generate everything. That's why more lower, simple visual should be more reasonable to develop. That's a sense of the development in the VR so far.
How do you think games like Alex are made? Like, what do you feel like it costs to do a game like that?
in the Half-Life bikes.
Yeah.
That's crazy. You remember the cost? It should be 100 or 200 million something. That you cannot do right now. It's not affordable to do.
You're talking about cross-platform. What kind of technology do you use in terms of rendering? Like, do you use Unity or Unreal?
We use Unreal. Yeah.
Unreal. Tell us a little bit about how Unreal feels itself in the VR the platform.
It adapts pretty well. We're not on Unreal 5. We're still in 4.262, I believe. We do have a VR version of Unreal. So there's a small kind of plugin specifically for VR. And then on top of that, we add our own little bits of flavor to help with the game. But Unreal's done well for us. We really feel like that's where the game engines are moving, and a lot of our story is based on a game engine. So it's kind of funny. We use a lot of Unreal.
Yes. Meta.
Exactly.
So, in terms of like customers, and when you're going to market, how do you suggest approaching, community building? How do you approach kind of ramping up the market to make sure that the sales are started like day one and so on? What are the tools that you could use to make sure that your game, especially a VR game, is successful down the line? Like, do you work more with platform? Do you work more with the community? Do you need to have a large marketing budget, maybe a lower marketing budget?
So we already launched two titles, and we learned a lot. And then current our concept of the game development is more like community driven. But of course, we work with the platform such as Meta, also Steam, and the SIE for the PlayStation VR2. But of course, we need their support. But we are making content which we are selling to the consumers. So current our approach is trying to interact with more communities, and then try to get a more feedback, and then try to implement our game. I think that's a key. And then that's they have a direct answers what they want to do, what they want, right? That's why we use social media, also Discord, and then build a community over there, then interact with them.
What do you think about platforms in general? Like, what is the platform to go to if you want to be successful in VR? Is it kind of Meta stuff, or is it PlayStation, or do you need to? Because you can't cover all of them like at immediately, right? So you need to prioritize. So where do you think the focus should be?
So the ideally, if you can launch the all platforms simultaneously, then we can reach out all users. That's why that's an ideal case. But as far as we know, the still majority of share the Meta Quest has, probably 60 to 70%. That's why I think if you target Quest 2 primarily, it's I think you can more chance right now. Yeah, and then they can expand the other platforms.
Do you get a lot of support from Meta and the platform holders themselves? Are they featuring you more? Do they provide you some extra support and other like technical questions or something like that?
Yeah, one of our advantages are, so I live in the Berlin game, which is a Meta XR headquarters there. That's why I interact with them very often. And our Japan team, the majority of people from the SIE, that's why we talk with SIE people a lot. That's why we have a more like information from them. That's our advantage.
I was in Epic headquarters, I think it was like 5 years ago or 6 years ago, and they were really heavy on showing their VR stuff, and they were using VR basically in engine, so you can build spaces using VR goggles and stuff like that. I'm not sure it was more like a gimmick or kind of like showcasing the technology. But do you feel like technology companies are really embracing more of VR right now? Like, do you feel like companies like Adobe,
I think it ebbs and flows. I think sometimes there's a push, and then it goes, and VR is trending up, but it's done this the whole way, right? So it's just finding that time and space for when there's enough early adopters that then fully push it forward, right? I look at it the same kind of analogy of like, beta or VHS. It's eventually like one of those hits, and then that adaptation moves, and then you've got everybody eventually will launch into it. So I see the VR space as eventually how the mobile market was circa kind of 2005, 2006, where it's inevitable that will really launch. It's just exactly when.
You mentioned that while working on X8, you have kind of distributed team. What are you looking in when you're trying to hire a developer? Like, are you just looking at their hard skills? Do you want people from particular region because it's better for your, time zone?
For time zone, for us and our team, what works best for us is anything that's not kind of in the Japan, Australia kind of realm, because we have kind of a core set of hours, usually from about 7:30 in the morning Pacific time, all the way to noon or 1. And those are times across the globe where most of the people are going to be active and on. And then the rest of that time they fill in to kind of finish their full day. So we have some people starting earlier in the day and they're ending their day or their evening in all the way in Eastern Europe, all the way to, the Pacific coast.
Is there enough people right now who know Unreal and are also comfortable with VR? Or do you feel like there is like a need for more?
It is sometimes difficult. It was very difficult hiring the right kind of networking, because you're looking for someone who has VR experience, you're looking for someone who has Unreal experience, and you're looking for someone that has PlayFab experience. There's that gets a lot smaller as you kind of go through. But we have a lot of really good developers who've the ones that didn't have a lot of VR experience have really learned the game and the dynamics and the design part of it and the reason for a lot of the tactile experiences. And then others have been in it as long as I have and have been really fascinated since all the way back to the DK1 launch.
Okay, so kind of like last question for you is when you're browsing through pitches, when you're browsing through projects, what are you looking for? Like, how do I sign a contract with you? What do you need from a developer?
Sorry. What?
If you're looking for a new project, what are you looking for? Does it have to be a team with a proven record? Does it have to be an interesting IP? Does it have to be a particular style or maybe a technical quality that how do you know that you want to work with this company and make a game a success?
Current company goal, the vision is try to create a metaverse. It could be, if we can describe a little bit more detail, it should be kind of MMO, RPG type of game. So many people access at the same time. But we need a more like a server technology. But it's as I said, in the 360 environment, it's hard to bring many people. That we have to do. Also, more like more the melee physics combat and shooting mechanics. Many things have to implement it. That's why we're making sort of fighting game, shooter game. But also to make VR market popular, I think we need existing IPs. That's why we are also talking. So that's the pillar we are trying to implement a game.
Is VR development big in Japan currently? Is it like a lot of companies are doing it, or do you feel like it's still like a smaller niche?
It's getting bigger, but there are not many VR specific developers in Japan. But it's expanding right now. But ideally, the big console gaming guys like Capcom, Konami, Sega, if they seriously jump in the market, at that time I think it's no big expansion.
I think Capcom was doing some work with the Resident Evil series.
Yeah,
and
but
VR.
They just provided IP. They didn't make it.
Oh, they didn't do it.
Yeah, that's a more core project with Meta.
I feel like when you're looking for developers, one of the things everybody's saying that you need to have passion, you need to be very, engaged and so on. Do you feel the same way, or maybe there are some things like passion that sometimes it can hurt, that people get burnt too often, or they kind of get sold on one idea and then you can't push them from it, like, and do something else?
Yeah, I mean, that comes a lot with just design. There's a passion to make sure that the game is not just a port from, if you were making Overwatch, you were making Valorant, or, we're just going to port that into a VR space. We really want a lot of interactivity. So we call them GVRIs, Global VR Interactives, that we have to have in the game. So we're trying to make sure that the things that you do, you're not just clicking buttons, but you're interacting, or you're enhancing, or you're moving in different ways, and given a lot of different physicality. However, we do base the game around being very, it's not room based. So you can turn and spin and take a step side and lean to right, but you don't move throughout the room. You don't need to. And the reason behind that is that our game lasts anywhere from 15 to 20 minutes for a full match. People play a couple matches in a row. And I still feel like in some ways gamers are inherently lazy, where they want to be comfortable but still want to play a lot of times. So we keep that a pivot point there, and you're stationary, but we do have a lot of movement from your center standing point.
So, final question. You have a lot of this meta ideas that there's a game engine that's kind of became salient, and he starts to do things on him. Where does that come from? And do you feel like market currently is ready for kind of these kind of story pitches, so on? Because it sounds like what you're saying is basically it feels to me is like there's like this audience that first of all knows what a game engine is, and it's large enough to get you enough players.
I think post Epic Fortnite, where Unreal became its real own entity and has grown very big, I think an average video gamer knows what a game engine is these days. And also the narrative on the game is a pretty small part of the actual game itself. So the game mechanics themselves, with each hero having their own heroic abilities and the casting system that you use, it's not really adhering to a narrative. It's just that narrative is a nice way to kind of put it all together and make it fun and make it have some sort of background sense.
Thanks for enjoying another episode of the 80 Level Roundtable podcast. Check out upcoming episodes on the 80 Level website at 80.lv. Join our career site at 80.lv/RFP. And share our podcast with friends and on your social networks.